Welcome to Rise from the Ashes, the podcast channel website that focuses on legal matters that may affect you and your family. On the program, we'll be talking with attorneys, mediators, counselors, and other family law professionals who understand the need to assist families and individuals in resolving the personal and legal issues they may be facing. Rise from the Ashes is sponsored by Mundahl Law, who specializes in assisting families and individuals through the legal process with respect, dignity, and caring. Mundahl Law is dedicated to helping people to solve their legal problems. You can visit the Mundahl Law website at mundahllaw.com or call to schedule a consultation with one of their qualified family law attorneys. Please keep in mind that this podcast is intended only to inform and to assist in understanding legal and personal issues as they relate to family law. It should never be considered as a replacement for a qualified family law attorney. When in doubt, please contact a professional. Rise from the Ashes, focusing on matters of the family because family matters. Hello and welcome to our podcast, Rise from the Ashes. I'm David Braddock and I'll be your host for the program. This time around, we'll be taking a look at some of the things to know before you get married. And we'll be speaking this time with Susan Mundahl of Mundahl Law. And Susan, you've got about 28 years of experience in what field of law?
Family law.
Family law. So sometimes you meet with people who are in the process of maybe...
thinking about divorce? Yes.
Dissolving their, marriage.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
You'd be surprised, though. Statistically, they say 50% of people who go to think about doing divorce and actually go through divorces are not actually convinced that that's what's needed, but they don't know what else to do. So I'm looking forward to today's topic because I think I have learned a few things about what makes a good marriage.
I probably should have said what we're going to be talking about are the things to know about your partner before you get married.
That's right.
All right.
You know, this is a very hard topic, and a lot of people think that they're in the starry eyes of love, and love will conquer all, and I'm here to tell you it doesn't. And in fact, the best relationships are the ones that are based on honesty and mutual trust. The way you get that is through having honest discussions, because anything's negotiable.
Just to get right down to it then, it looks like one of the top items here has to do with assets and liabilities. That doesn't sound like it would be a very easy thing to initiate in a conversation between a couple that's thinking about getting together.
Right. You know, Susie Orman even talks about it in a number of her books, about the importance of having that financial discussion. And really, the time to have it, I think, it definitely is at the time that you're thinking about getting married. You need to have that tough discussion. What you're going to want to talk about is, number one, think about how big is your partner's debt load. Because someone having a large debt load could disqualify the two of you from getting a home or any other large purchase.
It looks like one of the top items that's been outlined here has to do with each partner's money situation.
That's right. And that is one of the most difficult topics for people to raise, especially when they are in love. They don't think they should. They think love's going to conquer all, and it's not. When you're talking about money, money represents power, to talk metaphysically. And so it is important to know, number one, what is your partner's attitude about money? Do you have someone that has to save every single dime? And another one is you need to know, what is their risk tolerance?
The risk tolerance if they are going to get involved in making a large purchase or doing some kind of investment in their life.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. It is also, though, their willingness to take on debt. Because let's say you're about to have a child and all of a sudden your partner has gone into a spasm because they're going to have to spend from the savings account. Or let's say they're going to have triplets or something. You need to know what that is. Another one related to that is you need to know what is the size of their debt.
Right, because one of them may be going into this situation already with an established debt load.
Right. And specifically, you can talk about student loans. In addition to that is I have had clients where one partner did not know the other partner had a gambling addiction. And so literally they had mortgaged the home to the hilt and they had run up all of this credit card debts and they were getting ready to lose their house. And that was when I was doing bankruptcy law, and I remember the look on that woman's face when her husband told her she had to come in and sign these bankruptcy papers or they were going to be foreclosing on the home the next day. Learn from their example, have that conversation beforehand, and then be willing to do something about it. If that's not something you can overlook, you need to consider that a deal breaker. Or, there's always negotiation. Give them an allowance for gambling if it's something that they can do. But you need to know the extent of what their debt load is. Another point about the debt is really someone who has a great deal of debt, it can affect you as a couple because it can disqualify you from getting a home. If the other party has any judgments, it could be that your wages get garnished or that they take your income tax refunds or attach any joint checking accounts. Even though it is very difficult to have money discussions, it is absolutely imperative because it is one of the main reasons that people divorce is that they haven't discussed money. And then once they finally do, it leads to all kinds of trouble in the marriage and eventually leads to divorce.
Here's the next topic, sometimes referred to as a touchy subject. Let's talk about sex.
Sexual habits is a really important area that you need to reach agreement on. Right now, going on is this 50 Shades of Grey, where they talk about sexual, sadistic, and masochistic activities in the bedroom. And you and your partner should have a discussion prior to marriage about each other's sexual habits. You certainly don't want to be entering into a relationship. You know, that actually is the foundation for marriage even today, is there is this element of being sexually compatible.
So it sounds like that one partner or the other might be pushing for more of something that the other partner might be uncomfortable with, that type of thing.
Oh, yes. I actually had a case where, I represented a gentleman who engaged in cross-dressing. And clearly it was not something his wife was comfortable with. And while you or I may think cross-dressing is harmless or not, it's the important thing is sexual compatibility. Even in this age now where we have all new definitions of who we are as human beings, it is important that we enter into relationships with individuals who are at least willing to share in what we are. And a part of that is our sexuality.
Right. Not everything is going to be apparent on the surface, and by digging into it, you'll know a lot more about your partner as a result and whether you're comfortable with that or not.
Right. And I think that can lead to greater levels of intimacy, which isn't that what we all want in our life, is we want someone that we can be intimate with.
Next up has to do with what some might call the partner's addictions.
Right. And I think the key point here is everyone has addictions. I don't care who you are. I think we all have our cravings for such. Some of them can be harmless. Others are not so harmless. And again, we're talking about compatibility. And that is, have these tough discussions, because if you have them before you're married and are willing to make your decisions based on what is something you can handle and what can't you. Even if it's, I don't know, let's see, what would be an interesting addiction?
Well, you had mentioned the gambling earlier, and obviously that's going to be a potential detriment to the finances, but it might take up a lot of time, too,
right.
And not something you're necessarily interested in participating with.
Right, and if it's not actually an addiction, but more an enjoyment, then maybe the two of you enjoy going to the casino on weekends. But I think, again, a good partnership is one where you set the ground rules. So obviously, for gambling, the ground rule needs to be the other bills in the marriage get paid first. The rent money is off limits for any gambling. And I think that if you can do that, it's going to be a successful marriage. Because again, one of the main things I see in getting divorces is one partner has an addiction that the other partner is unaware of, and that it is causing harm to their marriage. The obvious ones are drug and alcohol abuse.
Right, but it could be as innocuous as video games. A lot of guys like to spend a lot of time in front of their monitor or their television set with a controller, and that might be something that doesn't work in the relationship. Or the partner might enjoy it, might want to participate.
Well, that's true. The problem usually comes in those situations is when children come along, because children need your time and energy. And if your time and energy is being spent in front of a video monitor, then obviously you're not going to be very good at parenting. In fact, we had one divorce where the young man belonged to 3 different monthly gaming sites. He would stay up until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then he would call her and say, "Oh, I can't take the kids today, I'm too tired." And clearly, that's not something that's going to work in a marriage or in a divorce, and it can be, one of the problems with you being able to get custody and parenting time if you have a history. So do have the honest talk. That is what this is all about, is think about your compatibility and be willing to make the hard choices. But the flip side of it is the uncompatibility is the fact that, again, you're going to have greater intimacy and greater truth and all of those good things that make for a good partnership if you have the conversation and if you can reach boundaries on what it is you're going to do within your marriage.
Isn't it true that some people will actually get married with an assumption that they're making that their partner is going to make some major change? If something is undesirable, that they'll be able to change them somehow?
Right. In fact, I think the old adage is, men marry women thinking they won't change, and they do. And women marry men thinking they can change them, and they don't. It's really true. We are basically who we are, and the only person you can change in this life is yourself. If you go into a marriage, you're much better off setting the boundaries of what is acceptable. In fact, I was in a relationship for a number of years, and the agreement we reached regarding the toilet seat cover is that he could keep it up and I could keep it down. And it worked for us. It was a negotiation. But that's the kind of thing you can do when you're in a relationship.
Well, next, how about your partner's lifestyle behaviors or just their everyday routines? You mentioned the toilet seat.
Right, and that's a really good example. Another one is time management. And so if you're someone that lives on schedules and you absolutely have to have everything, scheduled down to the last minute, you need to know if you are in a partnership with someone who doesn't care what happens from one minute to the next. And in fact, they thrive on living in the moment. It may sound incompatible, but if you have the honest discussion, maybe you can be a little more flexible in your timing, and that person can put some time in for you. What I'm talking about on all of these is communication. This is about talking with your partner before you're married. And in terms of those lifestyle habits, find out, are they slobs? Are they someone that literally throws their clothing where it lands, and they have different piles for how dirty something is, as we saw in one of the Ghostbuster movies? And if you're someone that wants to have everything picked up and put in the proper place, again, you need to have a discussion and hopefully reach an agreement.
I suppose if you can't agree with the things that they do when they're on or off the clock, imagine attempting to agree on how to raise your children. It does kind of bring us to the final point, a very important one, and that is, how does your partner feel about children and how to care for them?
That's really a very important discussion you should have before you're married. I have seen people divorce over someone getting pregnant. Again, going back to what you said about you think they can change. And in that particular case, husband said he never wanted to have children, and wife said she agreed they would never have children, and then she promptly got pregnant after they were married. And he became very upset, then divorced her over it. It's a very sad situation, and I have seen it happen more than once. I've seen it happen even in my own family. And so that is a discussion you have to have. And even after that, you need to have the discussion about how you discipline children and what expectations you have for behavior. And if you're a parent who's very lackadaisical and believe that children should just be left to grow the way they want, you don't want to be with someone that is firmly regimented and is going to, the old spare the rod, spoil the child, so they want to whip the child. Those clearly are going to show up, and they can be grounds for people to want a divorce because of that incompatibility. And quite frankly, it can lead to a lot of other problems.
Some divisive things where one parent might be playing the good guy in a situation where an important decision needs to be made with the child, and the other one is being the tough guy.
Right. We see that all the time. And sometimes the good guy is just simply one that's not willing to step forward and step up to the plate and take the parenting responsibilities because they'd much rather be a best friend. And that's really not what parenting is about. In some cases, it can simply be on the issue of raising children is get a good book, get a couple good books about child rearing and have discussions. Both of you read the book and have discussions about that. That, I think, is really a very important factor in whether your marriage will survive.
Okay. Yeah, because children can sometimes even feel responsible for some disagreements in the midst of those decision-making processes, and that's not good for the child either.
Right. And what you're setting it up for, really, by having these discussions is that when I see these divorces, one of the biggest heartbreaks for me is watching these people use their children as pawns. Your children don't deserve that. Your children deserve to be safe, and they deserve to be an enriched learning situation, and they need to be encouraged into adulthood. And you do those things by having a united front. And this is one of the ways to do that in preparation for children someday.
You can avoid a lot of pain and suffering if you get these things worked out way beforehand.
I agree.
It sounds like the gist of this topic is, although love may be blind, you don't have to be.
That's exactly right. Being willing to have loving and frank discussions about these matters can lead to thoughtful compromises and a deeper, meaningful marriage. Let that be your guidestone.
Well, we certainly hope that will work for everyone listening. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, and best wishes, everyone. I don't want to see you in divorce.
You are listening to Rise from the Ashes, the podcast channel that takes a careful look at all things having to do with legal procedure within the family law process. Rise from the Ashes is sponsored by Mundahl Law, who specializes in assisting families and individuals through the legal process with respect, dignity, and caring. Mundahl Law is dedicated to helping people to solve their legal problems. You can visit the Mundahl Law website at mundahllaw.com or call to schedule a consultation with one of their qualified family law attorneys. Rise from the Ashes, focusing on matters of the family, because family matters.